I'm Dr. John Gilderbloom, Director of the Center for Sustainable Urban Neighborhoods and Professor of Public Health, Public Administration, Planning, and Urban Studies at the University of Louisville. This video highlights our work that's been recently published in Local Environment and in the Journal of Planning, Education, and Research. And we're very excited about it. There's two parts to our research. One is a micro study of one street, which is two blocks away from here, where it's called Breckenridge. And one part of it is two-way, and one part of it is one-way. So we wanted to know what the valuation of the properties would be and how well the city streets were working. Well, the first 3 blocks of this neighborhood, as you can see, it's a pretty nice neighborhood. It's a two-way street and it works great. There's no abandonment. There's lots of trees on the street. People are walking their dogs and walking elsewhere, riding their bikes and enjoying it. But just right down here, 3 blocks away, is a multi-lane one-way street called Breckenridge, which changes over. And all of a sudden you see abandonment, blight, foreclosures, empty lots, very few trees, and very few people walking around. And it's an unsafe neighborhood. And comparing the two, we find that where there's one-way streets, there's lots of crime, there's lots of foreclosures, and in the two-way streets, the crime diminishes, there's greater safety and health on the two-way streets. We also did a macro study in Louisville of 173 neighborhoods. A macro study is looking at the difference between neighborhoods with one-way multi-lane streets and neighborhoods without the multi-lane one-way streets. And we found about 33 of them, mostly in the poorest neighborhoods, black or white, but mostly in the black neighborhoods of West Louisville. And that's where we found a bingo in terms of our research, a strong correlation and causality between where there's multi-lane one-way streets, the neighborhoods are dysfunctional. You have lots of crime, lots of abandonment, people losing the valuation of their homes, double the accidents, and so forth. And that's what we're showing in this research. And of course, this particular YouTube video focuses on our research just published in Local Environments, and we hope that you'll look at it, but also in the Journal of Planning, Education, Research, and also Focus magazine. We've really hit a bingo in terms of really understanding the neighborhood dynamics and what's working and what's not. In another video we've just recently done, we show the impact of pollution on neighborhoods as well. But our program, Sustainable Urban Neighborhoods, is all about renewing, regenerating neighborhoods that have been abandoned and creating happiness, greater health, prosperity, and safety and sustainability for the residents by reusing what we have in terms of the infrastructure. And that's what it's all about. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Billy Riggs. I'm a professor at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I focus on housing, transportation, and economic flow. For 50 years, we've looked at streets as being fast throughputs for automobiles, but we're now rethinking that from a sustainability standpoint, from an economic standpoint, but also a social justice standpoint. How might we rethink streets in the future of cities? I have colleagues, for example, Vikash Gaya at University of Pennsylvania, who said that two-way streets function better from a network standpoint. But what we're finding is they actually may function better from a city planning standpoint. Walkability, bikeability, and all of these dividend benefits that you get from thinking differently about streets.
The changing of one-way streets to two-way streets have been an economic boom for this Louisville neighborhood. This economic boom should be extended out to other neighborhoods which contain one-way streets. Most of the one-way streets in the city of Louisville are in poor neighborhoods and in neighborhoods that are black and brown. The economic activity in these neighborhoods can come up tremendously if we turn these one-way streets in these poor neighborhoods into two-way streets.
David James, who's following me on this, has a great story. He was running for a council member, and we met, and I said, why don't you run on calm streets and converting the most hated multi-lane one-way streets in Louisville and see what happens, because we had a problem with prostitution, fencing operations and drugs, and it was easier for a getaway for these multi-lane one-way streets. So he put together a whole argument of a vision for a great neighborhood, and he won. He went from 5th place to #1, and he's probably one of the most popular council members as well. And someday I think we'll be running for mayor on the same thing. Not only on the local environment article, which is highlighted here, but also in our earlier piece, which was in the Journal of Planning, Education, and Research. And in that piece, we actually show the impact of a policy of converting the streets from one-way to two-way on Brook and First Street, which is where the interview took place with Council Member David James. And the results were, of course, improvement in terms of the quality of life as measured by improved housing values, less abandonment, less crime, and so on. And it was a street I lived on. And it's still, compared to what people say, it's still a racially mixed neighborhood that's 50-50 black and white. And the argument, well, we shouldn't support changing one-way streets to two-way because it'll improve the property values is nonsense. Residents stay there, they like the neighborhood, businesses are growing there, and so on.
When I first ran for office, there was a lot of conversation about turning Brook Street and Floyd Street into two-way streets. And there was a lot of opposition against it, and there was a lot of people that really wanted it. When people are doing on two-way streets, when this was a one-way street, people would go from downtown down to Churchill Downs, and they would just zoom through because it was one way and it was like a drag strip. Right. But now that it's two-way, they stop and look and they go, oh, there's a restaurant there. Let's go there and eat. Or there's another, we could get fish right over there. Let's stop there and eat. They would have never seen it because they were zooming to the place they wanted to be. And so now I have absolutely zero complaints from it. A couple of the business owners that told me their businesses were going to crash and they would be out of business have now hired more people, and they're even more vibrant than they were. And so switching to two-way streets has been a really good thing for this community and this neighborhood, and I'm looking forward to doing some more streets as we move forward. Houses for sale in the market here, since we've turned to two-way streets, it's a very short period of time before they are sold. We just had one the other day. The first day it was on the market, it was sold. I mean, that's important. And one of the things that the people talked about was they like the two-way streets. And so, and the Victorian houses, it's just a perfect community. I would recommend to anybody that's considering it, I would urge you to do it, and you're not going to be sorry about it. And yes, there will be people that say, don't do it, and you're a booger-eating moron because you're doing it, but that's okay. It's the right thing to do, and in the end, the community will be happy, and everybody will be lifted up for it.
Changing one-way streets in poor neighborhoods and black neighborhoods can be an economic boom to those areas. Areas that have changed their streets from one-way to two-way has seen a huge increase in economic activity. This economic activity can go on in these poor and these black neighborhoods, and they deserve it. It takes little effort by contacting your councilperson or your mayor to initiate the process.